Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and I'm so grateful that you decided to join me today. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to deal with bullying. How many of you out there have been bullied? Where somebody's hurt your feelings or said some very negative things towards you, maybe on a consistent basis or even just at one point in time. I know it's happened to me, and I'm going to get into my story in a little bit, but this word bullying has such a negative connotation to it that the UNESCO Institute for Statistics report that 1 out of 3 teens are bullied worldwide. Worldwide, that's 1 out of 3. And bullies victimize others by using tactics that include intimidation, threats, insults, intentional exclusion, spreading rumors and lies. I mean, I know that most of us have probably experienced one of these, and maybe at some point we have made other people feel one of these things. So we may have intentionally or unintentionally done this to someone else as well. So a lot of times that person who is bullied may have learned this behavior, a lot of times that person who bullies may have learned this behavior from someone else. It's quite possible because you don't just come out of the womb and you just know how to be a jerk to somebody. Let's face it. I mean, many of us out there, we learn this negative behavior from someone else that influences us. And usually that happens at a young age. That's why you see bullying happen at such a young age, even in like elementary school. You see a lot of kids getting picked on because they learn that from maybe their parents or they see it from other children. And kids at that age, they're like sponges and they just take in a lot of that behavior. It's all learned behavior. So a recent study shows that 49.8% of tweens, so a tween is 9 to 12 years old, said they have experienced bullying at school. And I myself in that age group, when I was between 9 and 12, I certainly experienced a lot of bullying, believe it or not. And it still impacts me today. And the reasons for being bullied was most often because of their physical appearance, maybe their race or ethnicity, possibly their gender, a disability, their religion, or sexual orientation. I mean, going through that from 9 to 12 years old is pretty traumatic. And I can speak from my own experience. I remember some of my earliest memories of being bullied. Some people say that they were just joking and it was not that serious, but the way I perceived it, it really hurt me. I remember, and I'm going to get into my personal story now, but I remember being very young. I was probably in like anywhere from like that age group, 9 to 12 years old. People were making fun of my nose. They were making fun of my nose. And they would say extremely hurtful things on a consistent basis, to the point that the boy I had a crush on even said hurtful things about my physical features, and it crushed me. It destroyed my confidence. It destroyed how I saw myself. It impacted my relationships with friends and wanting to be at school. It affected how I saw myself. I started to believe that I had a big nose and I had certain features that looked like a witch and that I looked ugly, essentially. And being that age group, we just want to feel accepted. We want to feel loved. And this is something that we learn as a young person. We learn to believe these lies. So prior to all of that, I never had to deal with having a big nose or being told I looked like Pinocchio or people writing mean things into my yearbook. Like that was never a thing up until I learned that. So think about a time when people were harassing you or making fun of you and making you feel like crap, and how you were prior to that experience. You were probably very happy, and that one thing did not hurt you because it didn't exist. It didn't exist. Now, I'm lucky that I did not go through cyberbullying because that's a whole nother animal. I went through verbal bullying where people made fun of me and they said terrible things to me. And I heard that so often, not just from kids at school, but even people as I got older, they kept saying things about my features. So when they kept talking about my features and they kept saying I was looking a certain way, you start to really believe it. It starts to create anxiety in you. It starts to create self-doubt, lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, and your behaviors start to manifest in ways that you just want to feel accepted. You'll take whatever you can get. You'll take any attention you get from someone and you will say, "Oh, I'll take it because it's the only positive attention I'll probably get." And I can tell you, it took me up until my late 20s for me to unlearn what young people had said to me at one point. It took me a long time for me to say, you know what, that's not true. Like what these people said is not true. And funny enough, it took another 8 or 9 year old to tell me that. I remember I was tutoring these little girls about 8 years ago, and I was just sitting in her room with her, helping her do her homework. And she turns to me out of the blue, this little girl, so innocent, so sweet. And she just says, "Miss, I love your nose." There was no conversation about anything else. She just turned to me out of the blue and just said, "I love your nose. It's so nice." And it broke me because for so many years, people would tell me otherwise. I would tell myself otherwise. And people who bully people don't realize how much damage they put on somebody's emotions, self-belief, their mental diet of what they tell themselves. I mean, this can really have traumatic, depressive thoughts. I used to be so anxious in putting on sunglasses. I used to be so anxious when I did my makeup. I would compare myself to other girls whose noses looked like little bunny slopes. Like it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I used to compare myself so much to girls who posted pictures on social media, and Instagram was not a big thing in the 2000s, it was Facebook. So I would compare myself and delete pictures, and I would just have a favorite side of my face. Like anybody relating to me as I'm talking about physical appearance, I'm sure you're probably saying, yeah, there's something about your features or your body shape or, what people have said about other things about you. You probably can relate if you're following along still. So it really impacted me up until my early adult life. And it wasn't until it took another little child to say, "I love your features the way they are." I mean, I have heard this from other people who love me and care about me and saw me as a beautiful person, but it took an 8-year-old to tell me this for me to believe them. And let's face it, these kids at that age group, there's no filter. Like they don't have a filter. They say exactly what's on their mind and they don't care because that's their truth. They are honest. So I remember that people would make fun of my feet because, my parents had bigger feet, I guess, and I had big feet. And I remember family members saying, horrible things about my feet because maybe it was improportionate to my body. And, I look back and I just think about, this really messes with you. Like when people are lightly joking, it really impacts you, and you have to have an emotional thick skin to overcome it. Okay? We don't realize what people say about us in these formative years follow us into our later life. We don't realize it. And it can show up in ways in our relationship where how we see ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, in relationships with our colleagues at work, in relationships with our friendships, our relationships that are romantic, our relationships with our own family, and most importantly, the relationship we have with ourselves. If we don't like ourselves, if we don't think we're the bee's knees and we're the bomb.com, nobody else is going to think that. And we won't believe them even if they tell us. I didn't believe people for a very long time when they told me I was beautiful. I didn't because nobody told me that for so many years. So when people finally told me positive things, it was so rejected, and I was resistant to it for so many years. And it just ate me up inside. Like I couldn't take that in. So, um, another thing that people deal with nowadays, and I did not deal with this, thankfully, and I hope nobody will do this to me after I bring it up, but cyberbullying, that's a huge thing. And I didn't go through it in the early 90s or 2000s, but Pacer's National Bullying Prevention Center reports that individuals who have experienced cyberbullying at some point in their life have more than doubled from 18 to 37% from 2007 to 2019. So that's a long time. That's over 10 years of people increasing cyberbullying, being mean to each other online, doing it anonymously, creating hate speech behind a screen. Like, it's appalling what people do. And like I said, this is a learned behavior. People who are verbal abusers, who are bullies, who are doing this, they have their own set of issues, and they have learned this from somebody else who have made them believe that this is okay to do. So, some side effects, like I said, with bullying in general, some that I have experienced and some that many others have experienced, is the emotional trauma, the depression, the anxiety, the low self-esteem. Some people, I have not experienced this, but some people turn to substance abuse where they start drinking or taking up other substances to take to feel good about themselves. And if you are a young person, I never did this either, but some people who are getting bullied at school, they might want to skip school or they want to avoid going to school, and they withdraw from their activities that they like. They start not wanting to be a part of things. I know that this has actually happened to me lately. I talked about feeling a form of rejection, and there was other elements to how I was feeling with that form of rejection in a recent incident. I felt like there was a little bit of bullying, lightly, but it still affects you. See, what I'm trying to say is what happens in your early years and how you perceive that information, we never really deal with it because it shows up later on in life in different situations with totally different people, and we never really resolve the issue. It's still there inside of us. And until we start trying to heal it and do the work, we will never overcome it. So here I am in my present time, since, I'm telling you right now, when I was a 9-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl, 21-year-old girl, I dealt with bullying. I dealt with people saying horrible things to me. And although I have been working on myself, and I still am, and I'm still overcoming the traumas of all this past pain, one little trigger can set you off, and it can cause you to spiral backwards and take 10 steps back. So bullying in our early years, there's so much studies that have been done, it can really impact us as adults. And it can almost take a lifetime to overcome, because what we learn at such a young age, it really just sinks into our hard drive, and it's really hard for us to delete unless we have this emotional capacity to work with mentors, to work with coaches, to work with helping agents like counselors or therapists to help us overcome how this bullying and this destruction impacted us. Now, let me get back to some of the side effects. I kind of sidetracked for a second, but if you are getting bullied, it could totally be affecting your sleep. I know it affects my sleep, or it has affected my sleep. It influences us on how we see ourselves and how we see our potential in the world. I think I talked about in my very first episode how I didn't have confidence. And this is kind of where it comes from, is this experience with bullying and being bullied. So I didn't see my own potential. What other people saw in me, I could not see, because I was so wrapped up in feeling hurt and damaged and not good enough and rejected. I mean, it was terrible in that respect. And I just tried to carry on because that's all I knew how to do, but nobody was there to help me. Nobody was there to show me a way out. So if you are dealing with bullying, ask for help. Tell somebody. No matter who it is, tell someone, because that someone will get you the help that you need. If you are suffering in silence, don't. Step up, put something out there. Even if you are scared, that you overcoming that step of fear and asking for help is the best thing you can do for yourself. I didn't know how to do that at a young age until I got older. Okay. So don't let somebody else's words stop you from your own potential. The second you realize somebody's hurting you and harming you and verbally abusing you, go reach for help and find someone who can help remind you how amazing you are. This is what I do all the time in my line of work. I remind people, students, parents, my own team, how amazing they are, because I don't want anyone to lose sight of what they bring into this world. Because I know that whoever I go to for moral support, they remind me of what I bring to other people's lives. And this is what we need from each other. We need each other's support. Okay. So if you're getting bullied, this can certainly impact your relationships with other people. I know it has with me in various ways. And those are things that you have to learn how to work through. I remember in my early years of my career, I couldn't deal with harsh feedback. I couldn't deal with even constructive criticism. I would get emotionally charged. But you know what? I learned that that's how you react when somebody quote unquote attacks you or says something to you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just triggering certain emotion responses in our system. And also, when I was a young girl, I saw my mom sort of react in a certain way where, she would just lash out and she would just go crazy. And this is what she knew. And this is how she would react. And this is what I thought, this is how you react if somebody tells you something you don't like. So it's been a long time of training and reprogramming my brain to not overreact and to take constructive criticism professionally with logic and reasoning and asking the right questions to how you can improve. So making sure that your mental health, how bullying has impacted you, how it can impact your relationships with others moving forward. This is all interconnected. So like I said, if you're getting bullied, ask for help, because this could really impact your work relationships. This can impact your romantic relationships. This could even impact your family relationships. Okay. So this is very serious, this one. The next thing is the comparison trap. Like I said, I was a victim of this. Sometimes I still catch myself comparing myself and my looks and my figure and my features to other women who don't even look anything like me. And I say, I want to look like that. I remember comparing myself as a little girl, wanting straight hair. I had very wavy, curly, wavy hair, frizzy sometimes. And I used to just love girls who had straight hair because I wanted that. I mean, how many of us out there listening wanted what somebody else had because we didn't have that? And I know that I have friends now who tell me, Kat, I really love your hair. I have this kind of hair, but I want your kind. And it's just so hard for me to believe because, again, it's reprogramming the mind. It's retelling ourselves that what we have already, what we've been given and designated to us is more than enough. And somebody out there is going to see how beautiful you are. Somebody out there is going to love your body shape, the way that you walk, the way that you smile, the way your eye shape is, your hairline is, whatever. Somebody else is going to see the beauty in you and they're going to remind you of how much they admire you. And I think for women, we get really caught up in image and we want to preserve our youth. And I know that guys do, but maybe at a different stage than women do. And so it's very important that we protect ourselves when we start comparing. And there's a whole lot of ways that you can help yourself when you start noticing the comparing trap and having that awareness. So how to help yourself? Number one, ask for help. If you're noticing a consistent emotional downward spiral, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling like you can't sleep, if you're feeling anxious, all the things I mentioned, ask for help. Seek support at your school, your work, from your family, from your friends, and seek a mentor, someone that's able to help you in this area of self-esteem, reaching your potential, not dimming your light. Like, this is so important. I know that I do a lot of life coaching with the students I do because they deal with bullying, they deal with self-esteem issues, they deal with rejection. So I have to constantly remind them how exceptional they are. And if you are not taking care of yourself, if you are a counselor listening, if you are not taking care of yourself and your own emotional well-being, if you're not taking care of your own traumas and past hurts and pains, you need to get on it, because if you don't start working on these things, how are you going to show up and support other people? One of the best things that I probably could have invested in was maybe 5-6 years ago was in a love coach. I invested my a lot of money into a love and relationship coach, and I didn't have a relationship at the time, but that person helped me fall back in love with myself. A lot of the techniques and the work she did with me and in the group coaching I was a part of really helped bring back my self-esteem, instill some idea of self-worth, because I didn't have all these things. Nobody taught me this. And especially when you've been beaten down and bullied, you don't think these highly things about yourself. You don't think you're worth much. And so getting the right support and getting the one person that's just going to say that one thing that's going to change the trajectory of your life is so important. So make sure that you seek support no matter what. The second you are aware that bullying is happening, you're hurting, you're in pain, you're suffering, do not suffer alone. I repeat, do not suffer in silence. Ask for help. It can be the hardest step, but it can be the best step you can take for yourself. So I hope this information has helped you today. I just want to remind you to follow me on my social media. My Instagram is @wellrounded_consulting. I also have a YouTube channel, The Well-Rounded Counselor. And if you're looking just one of my freebies, I have my 10 free tips on a successful college application process. And I really hope that this information today has helped you and hasn't triggered much of your own past traumas, but has inspired you to take action and to help yourself heal. Or if you know somebody that's suffering and you want to spread this message that help is out there. There's so many resources online. There's so many people in probably your local community. Reach out to me on my Instagram. If my stories impacted you in any way. And I'd love to hear from you. As always, I hope you have an amazing day, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.